Ah, fuck. Okay. I think we're actually live in a reasonable way now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you won't know why I'm like this, but I've been having some technical issues tonight. I'm also a little late to stream, over an hour late tonight, but it's been an exhausting week. I was traveling earlier this week, just got in this afternoon, and it's not that I'm super busy in terms of getting pulled in a billion different directions at once. I've been in that job before, but I'm I don't know. We're bringing in a bunch of. So I'm an instructor. I teach software, programming, and we have a new thing, a new group of students coming in. It looks like this isn't actually going live, but whatever. I'm just gonna sit here. And it's just mentally exhausting to know I have all these people's careers basically on the line, and I'm trying to do the best by them. And they're onboarding, and tomorrow is when we really bring them in and start talking to them. And I want to keep up with the schedule, but I've had a bunch of different stuff not go so well on the YouTube channel, and it's just frustrating. I've been trying to get everything working and trying to get on a schedule, trying to get all of this working right, but life gets in the way. And I just feel like I'm failing to do what I wanted to do, and I'm failing to do what's right for YouTube and for everyone. And it's just frustrating. It really is, to see the goal but be unable to get there, partly just for normal reasons of work getting in the way of just life, and that always feels like a too obvious, too easy answer, too glib. But I don't know. There are times when all of this just feels like I'm um, trying to build something that's just not there. And by this I mean like all of these streams and so forth. I'm streaming and making videos and so forth, and obviously you guys watch them and like them and so forth. But and I'm glad of that. I don't want to kill that, but I don't know. There are days when it feels like I'm running constantly, but I'm not really progressing with the channel and so forth, and I don't know. And if that's just part of that's just not having a not knowing the future. Whoever knows. So yeah, I apologize for being kind of sad right now, but that is just how I'm feeling. I'm just going through some stuff. So this is not going to be a particularly upbeat workshop Wednesday, and it's kind of a weird intro. But what I wanted to do tonight, I have a few ongoing projects that I just don't have time to really get much progress on. But what I can do is do a little work on these pieces here. So this is a very simple bit of 3D printing work and 3D painting work, and that's what I need right now. And that's the thing. Sometimes, as a creative, you need something straightforward you can just make progress on, right? That's that you can just do something with. And so these are all pieces of a 3D printed castle walls. And so these slot in as basically decking. And if I get it up a little higher, I think you can see some of the decking lines in there. And so I need to just paint this brown basically on the top and on this side and probably on these sides, even though they'll stick together. And I've got some brown paint here. I hope I have enough. I may have to run to the store and get some more, but I just wanted to demonstrate in that kind of wonderfully Bob Ross, you can do it kind of a way, that yes, if you got something like this, and I'm going to get paint all over my hands. Unfortunately, I just ran out of gloves like a couple of days ago, and I ordered some more, but they haven't come in yet. And obviously, it's after hours, so I can't run off to the to Home Depot and get some extra plastic gloves. So I'm just going to get a decent coating here. Again, enough to make that brown. And I'm going to do this edge. As you know from before, we've got to make sure not to overload our brush with brown. Oh, got some on my fingers. Not unexpected. There, so I'm going to try to wipe some of that off. But I may just be going to work tomorrow with brown fingers. Oh well. I could stick something on here. I could tape a stick to the bottom of this, so I could hold it out, and thus be less likely to paint my fingers. Would probably be a good idea. But tonight, I'm just going to do this. So yeah, so we'll get this painted. And again, it's pretty straightforward, but the other thing about straightforward paint jobs like this is that they seem straightforward, but you can still, you still have to pay attention. Like, it's still worth watching what you're doing. It's straightforward, but it's not trivial in that sense. It's not like you can just be completely mindless. It's why I don't have sound on, music on rather, when I do these streams, because that's going to distract me. And I'm not going to do as good of a job. And I'm sure there are some people who can do that, who can have music going while they're doing stuff, but in my experience, the folks who do that, most of the folks who do that, end up getting a little distracted. I'm actually going to brush a little bit on to the sides there, because I've already got some hanging over the edge, and if I can get just a little bit on the sides, that'll cover up some of those. If you can see the sides a little bit, you'll see brown instead of this pure white or pure gray. And I'm just being very thin with it. Not quite there. Okay. See some other pieces here. It's very awkward to hold. Maybe if I hold it like this, yeah, that should work. I'm kind of loading up the brush when I first get it on there, and then spreading that paint around as I work it. You can see the gray is a little easier to work with since it's closer to the brown in color, so it's not that hard to blend in, but the white kind of shines through or shows through a lot. I'm actually going to put that down and then try to paint the edges. Yeah, it's not really sticking to the ground, or to the paper, so just get some brown there. And I'm actually not too worried about getting this perfect. These will be on the top of my castle. Any little imperfections shouldn't be too obvious. Hopefully the gray of the battlements and the stone will be most what folks are looking at here. So I don't need a perfectly even paint job or anything. Little imperfections will just be like, you know, normal wood. Wood isn't perfect either. Wood has some variations in color. So that should be all right as far as it goes. Cool. Get this down. A couple more pieces here. I'm glad I'm doing this, as simple and obvious as it is, because like I said, tonight I just needed something straightforward and easy, and that's not a terrible thing to remind yourself that your hobbies should be fun. Your hobbies should be something you can make progress on. It shouldn't all be work. Sometimes you're challenging yourself, and that's good. But you need to be able to find things that are easier. Just dabbing some paint on the edges of that. So hopefully that will look good. Need to do this edge too. 1 second. Cool. All right. This stuff should wash off fairly well, I hope. It's kind of a corner piece, so we'll get some paint on that. And I'm actually near the bottom of this tub, and I admit I do not like scrape out every last iota of paint. I will sometimes, toss out the paint when it's still got a little bit of paint left in there, just because I found trying to pull out all that paint ends up getting really uneven on the brush, and so you end up with some paint issues there. But that's fine. On that one, that's pretty good. And again, I don't need to paint all of these little stubs and such, because they should be pushed into the castle itself. Now there's actually a set of doors. This is basically the bottom of the gate. So this fits into there. We're just gonna throw some paint on here. I'm actually being very careful here. You'll notice there are 2 holes in here. Those are where the doors will slide on. And I don't want to goop a lot of paint on here, because then the doors aren't going to fit on that very well. So I'm trying to have a relatively light coat of that. That should be fine. So there's a light, even coat of paint there. And the doors, kind of similarly, I want to be kind of careful here, because if I goop a lot of paint on here, it's not going to fit very well. It's a pretty tight fit, so I need to make sure that this door is also there we go, also has a relatively thin coat, enough to cover, but no goopy paint. I'm pretty happy with that. So there's a coat of paint on the door, and a little bit on the top and bottom, and on the side there. And obviously I can't paint every side, because it has to go down on the paper. Go over here. Oops, there's actually a little bit more I can get in there. So I'll come back to that a little later to finish that out, but I'm trying to be, as I said, very light. Ooh, and I've got you see that bit of brush that's sticking up? I'm going to need to do something about that. I will probably cut that off here pretty soon, because I probably can't fit that back. I can't fold it back into the rest of the brush, and it's much better if I remove it. Otherwise it will bump into things and get paint on places where I don't want it to go. So one thing about paint is that it will often come over the side of your piece as you're painting. So as you do this, it will cause some paint to roll over onto this edge. And so it's important, if that's happening, to go to that edge and then use that paint to go over the side. Not adding more paint onto it, but just using that on the sides. And if you do that, then you get to use that paint on that side, and you don't have an extra big old roll of paint on that edge, which can then dry and gunk up and make your piece larger than it actually is. So be aware of that and be careful of that. Okay, so I've got that all over the place, and actually that's kind of that. Let me just relook at my pieces here. I've got a few bits here. You'll see on this one, you actually can't see very well. It's kind of uneven. So I'm going to add a bit more paint onto the edge of that. Like I said, this can be an uneven coat, but there are spots, especially on the white ones, where it's splotchy. And if I just go over it again with a little bit of paint, I can even out that splotchiness. And like I said, I'm not looking for perfection, but if I see so here's a good example. Probably still drying. But you can see how uneven that paint job is. Let's go ahead and fix that. And now that it's dried a bit, hopefully I can just grab that. Actually, let's move this out of the way and try to grab these two posts that are relatively unpainted. And then I'll just add some extra paint onto this. Not a lot. Not a huge set. But just, yeah, there we go. Okay. That's definitely more even than we had it before. And a few more spots here where I can just add a few more dollops of paint. Especially around where I was holding them, sometimes I didn't get really close in. So I can just add some extra paint on those edges to even those out. Worth looking at, worth having an extra quick glance at. Good, I think we've got paint all over the place. So yeah. So this is something that I would very happily put on the castle. Now that I've got that there, I'll wait for it to dry, may come back in and paint. And obviously the doors will need a coat of paint on the back, but you don't need to watch that. You get the idea. So I'll go and I'll try to clean the paint off my hands. But that is painting up this decking material, so to speak. Very straightforward, like I said. But the key here is to not overload your brush. Put some paint on there. Don't be afraid of paint. But put some paint on there, and put enough paint on there to cover your material, and to really get a good coat on one side, on the top. And then instead of adding more paint onto the sides, you'll have some that are gooping onto the sides that is already on your brush. Your brush isn't going to be completely dry. So you can often use that on the edges to paint those out without getting paint everywhere, without having lots of globs of paint everywhere. You don't need that much paint, actually. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty decent idea of where things are, and that's where that is. And so hopefully I can stick that into the cast and we're good to go. So, apologies for the short video and the somewhat sad sack opening there. I just wanted to be honest and real with you about where I am with things. So I should be back to a regular schedule for the next foreseeable future. Do some more projects. I have about half a dozen projects in the hopper for Workshop Wednesday. And we'll see where we are when we're at the end of that. I want to finish out the board game we worked on a couple weeks ago. And make some sweatpants as the weather is going to start to turn here fairly soon. We're heading into autumn in my part of the country. We're at the in the full bloom of summer, but nearing the end of the full bloom of summer. So at some point I want to replace these sweatpants that are all falling apart. And we got some other ideas, some electronics projects and such. But anyway, that is it for Workshop Wednesday. Thank you all, as always, for joining me. And until next time, make something.